certification is the certification is not a big issue.
Better be good. We're going to meet again, you know. Okay. Start introducing them. Okay.
Hello everybody and welcome to the CERIAS Security Seminar here at Purdue University. Today's speaker is our own Abhilasha Bhargav-Spantzel. She also got her undergraduate degree here at Purdue University, and today she will tell us about digital identity management and protection.
Thank you. So, as Professor Anita Taro said, that I'm going to talk about digital identity management and theft protection. This is my main focus of research for my PhD, and it's got some very interesting problems and very important ones, solutions to which I think makes a difference in each of our lives. So just to make sure, may I ask the audience, who knows what I mean by digital identity management? What is meant by digital identity management? Just the term. So there are a couple. I hope by the end of this talk you get an overview of the state of the art of identity management, really what happens, some of the basic protocols, and looking into identity theft, which is one of the most important security threats in identity management systems. Okay? Just on time. So the basic outline is as follows. We will go through some basic concepts of digital identity, then look into what were the stages of development of an identity system and the current state. Then we will discuss an implementation that we are doing here in Purdue. It's an open source implementation. Then we will switch gears to a security problem in identity management systems, which is identity theft. And then I will give an overview of our solution towards solving this problem. Okay? So, the basic concepts. This is an interesting question. What is a digital identity? What is your digital identity? And one way of saying it, and there are several definitions out there, is digital identity is a set of claims made by one digital subject about itself or another subject. Okay? A subject could be an actual human being or a process, a resource. But what are these claims? These claims can be assertions of truth about something. These are typically assertions about something which is disputed or is in doubt. It can be an identifier, knowledge of a secret, some personally identifying information, membership in a given group, and even a capability. So these definitions embrace very well-known authentication systems like Kerberos, which is based on tokens, X509, which is basically digital certificates, standards, SAML, which is security assertion markup language, which is the upcoming standard for sharing assertions, and a lot of identity management systems depend on the standard, and there are several emerging new technologies. Okay? So once we have a bunch of identifiers which basically tell who you are, what you have, what you know, what is it really identifying? If it identifies one single person, then it is called a strong identifier. Example of this is a social security number, a passport number. And if this identifier puts you in a group of people, then it is essentially a weak identifier. So, for example, Purdue students might put us in a group of 10 people in this, but 10 or 12 people in this room. So it does not uniquely identify you. And it is a very important distinction to make between the strong identifier and weak identifiers, and seeing the properties while considering the security conditions. So we make this distinction in our work. Okay. Then let us see what are the problems of managing our digital identity. The internet as such was really built without knowing who you are connecting to or what you're connecting to. So what happened was that the different web services tried to compensate it with their own authentication systems. Then they had this patchwork of having their own username, passwords, without really knowing what else is happening, what other web services are offering. So what this led to was a lot of username and passwords. We all know how cumbersome it is to manage these username passwords, which lead to a lot of security threats. So one thing we need is a good authentication system, which helps us make this authentication mechanism much better, usable. And it is not just from the user side. It is also from the service provider side. So some of you might know what I'm talking about. The phishing attacks, right? The phishing attacks can actually fool a normal user for using a site he is submitting information to. So for example, over here, an adversary can mimic or can actually copy the whole template and the looks of this website and get the information of the user, and then use this later for fraudulent purposes. So it is important to be able to authenticate both ways. Another problem which exists in current system is a patchwork of systems. There's a lot of redundant information. I'll try to show that with this example, which is a realistic example, because you go to any company. For example, if Bob goes to company A, and company A requires the name of the person, the address, the telephone number, the date of birth, to be able to provide the service Bob needs. Bob's happy to give that information. But then, as the activity of a user online, it goes to other services, and similar information might be required. So company B also requires a lot of information which was given previously. And just to prove a point, this can really get annoying for a user to be providing information which he might be okay to share if the companies actually shared amongst themselves. So we need a mechanism by which the information which can be shared is shared between organizations. Okay? So there are a lot of interesting problems here, because maybe the date of birth is very sensitive for Bob. So there should be a way to differentiate where he wants to opt in for sharing and where he wants to opt out. And that comes into the whole privacy preferences and policies area. So after looking at the basic concepts, let's look at the desired properties of an identity management system. And to really structure understanding of identity, I will look at a very well-studied paper by Kim Cameron, who is Microsoft's chief architect. He's a very well-known figure in identity management and one of the main persons involved for .NET Passport, which did not work out, and we'll discuss why. Okay? So there are about 10 to 12 laws of identity, and we have time to visit 4 of them a little more in detail. These 4 are user control and consent, minimal disclosure for a defined use, justifiable parties, it's not obvious what I mean at this point, but we'll go into it, and directional identity. So the first one, user control and consent. The digital identity system must only reveal information identifying a user with the user's consent. So this basically gives a sense of control to the user about his identity, digital identity information on the web. So this there are definitely a lot of websites which archive public information or information available online and give it to users for use. One of them, I just put my name there. I was thinking of putting somebody else's, but just to be safe, I put my name there, and there were 7 records found. And anybody without my permission can look into these records.